Welcome to Storytellers, the podcast where we hear the tales and journeys of inspiring members and supporters of NSA Houston. I'm your host, Beth Rohani, and here everyone has a unique story. So let's get nice and cozy as we spotlight our next storyteller. Hi, Karen. How are you? I'm so excited.
Good.
I wanted to make it special for you because you are definitely a trailblazer in the industry. And me as a newcomer, I want to absorb it all. I want people like you all around me to be able to tell me what were the triumphs, what were the things that you had to overcome in order to get to where you are. Because I know a lot of newcomers, people that are becoming new members, or even thinking about going into this genre are intimidated. And so tell us, let's start out with finding out your personal triumphs and how they shaped your journey as a speaker, corporate trainer, author, just kind of who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
My friend Nancy Hopper brought me to a national speaker, NSA Houston meeting. And she said, this is what we should do. And we were there the night that the graduating class, they called it back then the mentees, they weren't the academy, they were graduating. And I saw 10 people give their speech. And I said, that's what I want to do. That's going to be my next chapter. And they were you had to register and you had to actually go through an interview process to get into the academy. They only took 12 people and I signed in and you had to make a commitment and I made the commitment. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of really the whole thing. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a speaker. I had no idea what it was about. I had no idea what I was going to have to go through. And I remember hearing someone say that there's a reason that the headlights, when you're driving at night, only show you 6 feet. Because if they showed you how far you had to drive, let's say if you were going to California from Houston, you would never make the trip. That's speaking. I only knew that I needed a little bit. If I knew back then, what it was going to take, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I think that, because it wasn't easy. I mean, it was definitely, when you said a journey of highs and lows and ups and downs, but I had come from a business, so I had a business background. I'd run 4 clothing stores, so I knew a lot about profit and loss. I knew a lot about that. I didn't do this alone. I had to hire people. And having that business acumen really helped me. But I did something very bold. Because I'd had clothing stores and customers, I rented the junior league right off the bat. I rented the junior league. I wrote a talk called The 7 Women Inside of You because I was going to show women how to dress their 7 women and then how to take care of these 7 personalities that were inside every woman. So I think I was working with Office Depot and JP Morgan. They were one of my clients early on. And I asked them for models. So I got corporate models on the stage and I presented a program called The 7 Women Inside of You. And I did my own events. I had no idea that was hard because I was used to that, having the business. And that's really how I started my business, by doing my own events.
And it seems like one of the things that you gain is, more importantly, the experience of becoming resilient to overcoming those adversities and then learning from your experiences and then applying them in anything, because once you have the foundation, like you said, allows you to be able to set it for everything else.
Well, it's interesting because I needed the money. A lot of people will go into speaking and they'll have a nice, maybe retirement or they'll have their savings. I didn't. I went into this. And so I got a big calendar. I mean, I'm going right back to the beginning. And I remember getting $300 for my very first paid gig. And I can even tell you who it was for. But I got $300 and I put it on a calendar. And I would write every time I made $300, $500, I would write it on the calendar because I had to see the growth. I needed to work. So I started right off. We made phone calls. Remember, I'm talking about 1999, 2000, and there was no internet. We made phone calls. I was so excited when email came on the scene because I could market through email. I didn't have to call people, but that's how it began. And it began with telephone calls. Today, we don't have to do that. It's so much easier, except for one little thing. I think that the speaker arena is extremely crowded. It was not that crowded when I started, and there were not a lot of female speakers. And so if you were good, And we can talk about that in a minute about how to get good. But if you were good, you got booked, and I got booked from the audience. So I looked at every speaking engagement for me as a showcase. And I was going to only speak, even if it was for free, to audiences that had buyers. So I wasn't going to go talk to a networking group where we networked with each other. I was going to only talk to groups where the audience ran a business or was in a business and could bring in a speaker. And that's really how I grew my momentum, by strategic to who I spoke to and looking at each gig as if it was a showcase.
I think in business, because you have that business mind, you think of opportunities and how can you take this one opportunity and branch it and create more opportunities out of it. And
That was the name of the game. That
uh,
one event, I needed to get at least 2 events from every event that I spoke and build those relationships. But in the questions you asked me, what was my pivotal moment? I made money right off the bat. I can tell you my first year, I had an income. It wasn't great, but I made an income because I needed to work and I had a business background, and I figured out how to get booked by speaking in front of groups that had buyers. I also am a relationship person. So every person I met, I get booked from people, and these are people here in Houston who booked me in the beginning, are still booking me. And we're talking about 20 years ago. You know, I have kept those relationships. I feel like that was probably one of the key things that I did, because through relationships, and I'm talking about a freebie that I did, I got to speak at Connect Marketplace from a free gig that I did 3 years past. Connect Marketplace had a buyer in the audience from a bureau called Kepler. And John saw me and put me into Kepler. That was my very first bureau, which was a huge bureau here in the US. And that was the beginning that launched me into the next level. So I went from here to here with one gig, from a relationship that I made from a free gig 3 years back.
I love it. And so, what I really want the audience to hear and take away from this is the power of your network and the power of branching out your network, and also building yourself in a credible way to where people have that trust in you. And through that, they essentially just come and start gravitating towards you, and one thing leads to another. So it's definitely something powerful. And I think it not only resonates with the connections that you make, but also the story that you tell. And it seems like you've now mastered the art of storytelling.
In our NSA chapter, back then in like 2005, I'm going all the way back, because we had a group of guys and me who were funny. And so we formed our own comedy group.
I love
And we would meet. I live here in the Heights, and we would meet here. There was a little bar on Saturdays right here on Washington Street. And we would meet every other week, maybe once a month, and we would tell a story, and then they would bump it up. And I have a story that I'm going to actually tell NSA Houston, which was my first story that made me famous. And it's my Sting story. It's about me meeting Sting.
Oh.
I took that story out because I felt like young people have no idea who Sting is. And I just went to NSA Influence, and I have decided to bring that story back. That story put me on the map.
And so we get to see this on August 18th.
I'm going to do that story for you because it has a lot of elements to a story. So as I'm speaking, telling you about building relationships, about getting your break with a bureau, there's the big huge piece I'm missing, and that piece is practice. Because I believe right now that we're so focused on content, with Twitter coming out in 2007, 2006, I think we had a huge shift into content. And there's an expression, content is king, and speakers really got into their content, and we forgot about the stories. I believe that stories are coming back, and I am bringing back some of my stories because that's really what put me on the map.
Well, we are super excited to have you be able to tell your Sting story on the 18th. And so, ladies and gentlemen, definitely don't miss that, because it's going to be very, very interesting from what it sounds like.
Well, some of them will have heard it because I'm bringing it. I put it on the shelf for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
The younger, maybe 8 years. Well, with the younger people, I just said, oh, they're not going to know Sting.
Yeah.
But with video and sound, you can bring Sting right onto that stage with you. And that's what I'm doing.
Very much. So, what does it mean for you to do it and prove it? If somebody told you, hey, Karen, do it and prove it, what does that mean to you?
We can write these wonderful stories about ourselves and we can put it on social media and we can have pictures of ourselves. Looks so great. Our websites look good. Our photos look good. We've got the look, but now we've got to prove it. And the way you prove it is through practice. You're a marketing guru. We spend a lot of time marketing and very little time, I'm finding, going over the speech. I used to walk Memorial Park every day in the beginning and practice my speech over and over 3 miles. And I would say my stories, to myself, look like I was a crazy person. We've got to do that
Mhm.
because we put so much into the marketing and we're forgetting about the talent.
Mhm.
We're forgetting style.
The saying goes, practice makes perfect. It definitely is something that is true, and it allows us the path to success. So, can you share a significant challenge that you encountered, and how was it that you navigated through it by doing it, improving it to yourself?
The biggest challenge that I think speakers will go through, I call it the anxiety gap. Whenever I would start to get anxious and worried and really kind of down, and let me be honest with you, it happens a lot. It was because I knew I had to go to the next level. You start at one level and you want to get to the next level, but you've got to up your game. And that's going to not only take money, it's going to take more of writing, it's going to take the marketing, it's going to take you getting better. And I feel like when you say the hurdles, to me, that's the big hurdle. It's always improving. So I know my friend Jim Jacobus, he says we're lifelong learners. Yes, we as speakers are lifelong learners, but we learn the content, but we also have to up every other piece of us. So we think, oh, good, I've got my website done, I've got my video done, I've got my demo, and then I want to raise my fee. Well, to raise your fee, you've got to have a $15,000 website. It's got to look like your fee. So I feel like there's definitely these anxiety loops that we are all going to go through. And I tell speakers, when you get stressed and you're sad and you feel like, oh, it's because you're ready to grow.
Who has been someone that has impacted you in terms of aspiring you to becoming who is your role model?
For me in the beginning, and we're going to go way back, it was just two women. It was really two women. Well, it was Patricia Fripp, but it was Connie Podesta, Patricia Fripp, and Jeannie Robertson. Those were the women that were on the stage. That was all. There were other women, but those were the women. I wanted to be funny like Jeannie. I wanted to be edgy like Connie, and I wanted to be eloquent like Patricia Fripp. And I would listen to their stories, and then I said, "Well, I'm not Connie. I'm not Patricia. I'm not Jeannie." And you have to begin to figure out who you are. But I did listen to them. And back in the day, we had tapes and we would put them in our Walkman and we would walk with tapes. I mean, it was so. I'm writing a keynote right now about why I love working with young people. And it was because if I didn't hire young people, I wouldn't be here today. Everybody I hired pushed me, to go from a PC to a Mac, get on YouTube. I was on YouTube before anybody else because my nephew Mike was my videographer and I took him with me everywhere. Learn how to do more fun, creative PowerPoints, which we call Keynote in Mac. I had young people pushing me and showing me the way. And pretty soon you realize you have to develop your own style. But when you say who were mine, those were mine.
It sounds like this day and age, you do have to become modernized in terms of getting your brand out there. And I'm kind of going to go off topic a little bit because we're already here. But how do you think social media channels and platforms help elevate your brand?
I know you're out there. You're a known. I just think I'll give you an example. I think it was a group. When I walked in, they were already there sitting down, and two people ran up. One, we've watched your videos. We know all about you. We saw you on YouTube, and it hit me. You can have the introduction you want, but they're watching you before you come on the stage. They know you. They've been to your website. They've friended you on LinkedIn. They're friending you on Instagram. They're watching your stuff. There's an intimate relationship right now before you even take that stage. And it was the National Notary Association. So these were notaries. We saw you on YouTube. And I realized that was a long time ago that you've got to be out there. You can't be shy. You've got to put your stuff out there.
And yes, I mean, I didn't know you personally, but by me getting on there, I got a little glimpse of you.
Yeah. So you've got to be active. Now, besides speaking and besides writing, now we've got to really take care of all of our channels, and they have to really be authentically you.
Very much, very much. And also, just like everything else, tell your story, because everyone has their own style, their own colors. And and we're going back into the business elements of becoming a professional speaker or consultant or coach, the more you can streamline your brand, the more you can make it consistent, the more you can frame your story and who you are, allows people to be able to recognize you. So when people do see your YouTube, they're like, Karen, I saw you. I recognize you. I remember you.
So that's how people see me. Just what you just did. Karen, they act like they know me. So I must have a brand that I've identified as friendly and easy, approachable. Not every,
Exactly.
but that's exactly how they act. Like I was in Nashville in a bathroom and someone screamed my name. I had no idea who it was. She goes, "Oh my God, Karen, I see your videos all the time." So we have to really understand that what we're putting out there is a good definition of who we are.
It's like a digital business card these days,
Yeah.
to where people just grab it and they look. Resumes. A lot of people look at that, and especially LinkedIn as now the more digital resume of what you do, who endorses you, what are your strengths. I actually just wrote the first article for the National Speakers Association on their LinkedIn page. And again, it's just a way of getting information out there about yourself, about your organization, the things that you're involved in. And it seems like with you, you have established a very, focused type of program that you'll be presenting on the 18th to us. And I'm actually a little bit more interested to hear about the Killer Keynote workshop that you created and what that's about and how you got that going.
It started way back. I think I did my first one in 2015. So for me, the most fun part of my job is writing the keynote. So I love creating new keynotes. I love it. And I think that I'm known for having a fun interactive program. That's kind of what I'm known for. And so I started teaching Killer Keynote. I started working with people because it's my second love. It's helping speakers. It really is. And then my son Ben and I went to hear Ben does my web, is my marketing guy, and we went to hear Donald Miller. And Donald Miller wrote the book Story Brand, and it kind of blew me away. He was really talking to business owners, but I listened to him and I realized that the story brand philosophy is really the keynote philosophy, how to write a keynote. So there's parts of story brand that I started creating this. I have these worksheets, which everybody will get. Really, I don't know if everybody will get a big one, but when I do chapters, I give everybody a big sheet because it's more dramatic and it's a lot more fun.
Okay.
So I created a process that we go through. And what I found with this process of creating your story and your keynote is it's a great resource for when you do your conference call. If you ask on the conference call the questions that are here, you're going to get the answers to how to write your keynote. Because I believe that we're hired, people are paying you money. And some of us are getting, you're getting big chunks of money for a reason. And so you've got to find out why they're hiring you. And I think a lot of speakers are so involved in their talk that they aren't even thinking about the audience and why they're being hired. So I began to shift to understanding the audience, understanding why the buyer's hiring me. That would be the person paying you, what the buyer needs and what the audience needs. And so when you do that, all of a sudden the creativity opens up and you can put more into that keynote than just your content. But I created a kind of like a process of how you go through it before you write the keynote. You fill all this out. And then the answers are right here into how you begin to put this into a keynote.
I, as a newcomer and new to the industry, and I'm absorbing every single thing I can possibly get my hands on, and
You're great. You're gonna be such an asset to NSA, and you're a wonderful interviewer.
oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Well, if I have a good partner that I get to collaborate with, it definitely makes it easy. And you definitely are one that I'm enjoying this interview with. So thank you for being here. And I know that the NSA members definitely do look up to you. how would you say that the NSA chapter, the Houston chapter, has supported your growth over these years that you've been a part of it?
I looked at NSA when I went into NSA as grad school, because there is no training to be a speaker. I went in and I listened to every speaker. In the beginning, I did what everyone said, which was, you figure out that you can't do what everybody says. But I just looked at it. I never missed a meeting. I went to them all. I went through the academy because I'm hungry, I guess, for learning. There is definitely, Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. And I want to follow the people and I want to listen to the people who are successful. Not all of them were my style. I think your style is just really a huge piece of who you are. So once you figure out what your style is, you can kind of guide yourself towards those people. But NSA was everything for me. And it still is. I did not want to go to Influence, which is their national conference. I said, I don't need to go. And I went and I came back jazzed and ready to write my story, ready to put my Sting story back, take it off the shelf, dust it off, redo it a little bit, because it was all about, for me, storytelling. And it was the art of storytelling, which is really how I started, got into too much content. I'm going to be back to telling more stories.
And I will say that I've heard you a few times mention the Speakers Academy, and this is something that is getting launched again this year, and we're super excited about it. I want to know, what was the significance of the Speakers Academy for you, and how did it help you grow in the industry?
Tom Britton was my mentor. Tom believed in me. In the beginning, there were only I think in the end there were only just 6 of us in the academy, and every one of the people in the academy with me was brilliant. One was an author. I was impressed, and I felt like I don't have anything to share. But my mentor was Tom Britton, he saw in me more than I saw, and he believed in me. And it helped me a lot. Tom, and we had rules like back then. If your mentor took you out, you always paid for lunch. You treated your mentor like a king. It was really, I think Tom enjoyed me. He's in Austin right now. We still talk, but I learned a lot from Tom. And I also learned that where you start is not where you finish. I'm laughing because the speech I wrote in the academy was nothing it wouldn't have gotten me anywhere, but nobody told me it sucked. They let me develop it. I did my video with it. I mean, I thought I was so great. And I look back on it now and I'm so embarrassed. But that's why I think I have compassion for beginning speakers, because where you start is not where you're going to finish. But you have to make those mistakes. Someone can't tell you, don't do this. Sometimes we just have to go through it and make those mistakes in the beginning.
And what I've realized through my short period is the more you repeat it over and over again, the more it develops your story. And the more you can actually mold it into becoming it, the story. And, some elements of it may change as a result, but ultimately the genuineness has to be there.
It's a journey, and no one needs to tell you all the pitfalls. We just need to say, stick with it, keep learning, be open-minded, and the talent will come. Garrison Wynn heard me speak. He's another Houston NSA. I don't know if he's an NSA anymore, but Garrison Wynn saw me speak and he told me I had talent. I still remember that. He could have said you were good, but he said that I had talent. I love that word, talent. I remembered it. And that fed me so much. Garrison doesn't even know how much he helped me become what I am, because he saw my talent. We need people, when they see us doing well, we need to be told.
Those little wins that continue to encourage you to push forward. I know in life there are constant obstacles and challenges that you have to overcome, but having that resiliency, having that mindset that you can do it and you can prove it by just sticking to it, finding the right people, finding the right support system. Places like the National Speakers Association are great environments that have people like you who are seasoned, who are well knowledge, who have gone through those experiences. And I think one important thing that I've learned in any organization that I've been involved in is I don't go into the organizations with the mindset that they are going to feed it to me to where it's just going to come. I'm going to have to go there and seek it and grab it from this person and that person and apply it to myself. But it's not going to be, a classroom environment to where someone's going to teach it, someone's going to book your gigs for you, someone's going to, make your phone calls for you. No, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to develop it. But by being around people like you who have done it, you gain a little bit of insight here and you gain a little bit of experience there. And then you little by little mesh it together.
You said, what was it? Do it, prove it. What did you say?
Prove it.
Yeah, do it, prove it. And it's interesting because here I am saying that, but I always had a great web designer and a videographer.
Great.
I think that I became a little bit more successful quicker is because of the video. And I had to pay, I had to invest. I was always spending money. I was always paying for it. But you've got to look, you've got to look the part.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to look the part to play the part. And what I've found these days, again, there's not very much cost associated with social media platforms. They essentially are free of charge. It's just your time and what you want to put into it. And I've seen your Instagram page, and there's good content on there. And if the more value you bring to people, and I think as professional speakers, consultants, coaches, that's what our audience is looking for, is what is that ultimate value that we're going to gain from this experience, whether it's for our employees, whether it's for our team, whether it's for an audience that, again, has to be someone that gets influenced, can walk out of there saying, this person made a difference in my life during this small moment that they were with me, or the small moment that I spent scrolling through their feed. And so the more content that you can put, and I know you were speaking about content earlier and how everyone got into the mindset of just producing content, but there's a difference between valuable content and just junk that's going out there. And that's what ultimately builds the trust, is the value of that content.
It's the value of the blog. I mean, I have one blog that's like the little engine on my website. It gets so many hits every day, and you realize that it's that content. So getting the right content, not just putting anything out there, but thinking about what's going on in the world right now and how does your content relate to what's happening and how is it meaningful. We don't want to hear about what we can read about on on Wikipedia or whatever. We want you to give you real opinions about what's going on, how your content relates to where we are in the world today. I mean, there's a lot going on right now.
How do you keep up with it? How can you keep up with the technology and the ever-changing platforms? And that was my article for LinkedIn that I wrote for NSA, was AI and how it's going to change the professional speaking arena. And so how do you
Read your article, and I liked it because AI is my office mate. AI gives me the 10 things I need, and then I'll use one of those and I'll write about it. But remember, AI only goes to 2021.
it
So
does.
it's not that current, so you can get ideas, but it's not going to give you your opinion. It's not going to talk about things today, but it sure gets you started. Chapters of a book, bam, you can get it right off the bat. I love AI.
Very much. I also think it's a good platform to use to give you that support, but I don't think that it can ever tell your true story. So the human element of it has to be involved still to be able to really get that personal meaning.
It's the content. It's going to give you the content, but it's not going to give you the context.
I
It's going
love
to give you the content, but it's not going to give you your story. So we've got a lot of content out there. So what is going to make a speaker valuable today? It's going to be that energy of their stories. It's going to be how they put their personality into it. So I think that, kind of going back full circle, develop your style, develop who you are. You've got the content. Now, how are you going to make that rich and engaging with the audience? Which leads me to what I'm going to talk about on the 18th. How do we connect to our audiences? Because they've heard all the content. So how do we make our content come alive?
For those that are aspiring to make an impact in the industry, what advice would you give them? And I've heard a couple of really great advices, but just one significant one that you would give.
I don't think we know where we bring value. I think they know where we bring value. It's when we begin to hear what they liked, when we can begin to actually read what people are saying about us. We have the guts to ask for those testimonials. You're going to begin to see where you bring value, because I think everybody thinks they bring value. Every speaker I know thinks they're the best. I mean, sometimes you talk to a speaker, they start going into their speech. People, most speakers don't lack confidence and seeing their value. Where I believe that they lack it is in that self-awareness of understanding where the audience sees they bring value, where the buyer sees they bring value. So when somebody brings you back, you've got value. What did they like about me? Tell me a little bit more about what did you connect with? Ask those questions. Begin to be brave and talk to the buyer about why they're bringing you in. And when they like you, what was it? What was it? And time after time, they're going to say things that you haven't even thought of. You know, we like the way you connect with them. They liked you. So when you say, where can someone bring value? It's to begin to listen, ask those questions, and find out where you're resonating with the audience.
Absolutely dynamite, because it exposes your vulnerability. And as people, I find that we are resistant to constructive criticism. And when you are vulnerable and you are willing, and the key word that you said is to listen, that is when you can make that improvement and that growth within yourself. And I love the fact that you said, don't be afraid to ask for referrals. Don't be afraid to ask for reviews, because all of that helps build your credibility and build that trust, and then allows you to be able to improve yourself and grow and really formulate the value that you want to bring to your audience. So that is just amazing. And I love that. So
I just did a keynote for a new keynote for a women's group. I don't really speak to women's groups, but now I want to. And she said to me, they told me what they wanted, and it wasn't my cookie cutter. And she said, what I'd like you to do is to come a day early and sit in on the panel. I want you to get to understand the women better. So I went a day early, and I sat and I listened, and I redid my keynote in my room that night. And I put a lot of what I learned into it. I got the best testimonial ever. And I got a letter. It's here somewhere because I'm going to frame it, from the president of the International Association, telling me that it was the best keynote she's heard in a decade. Now, I got a keynote that I read, but what did I do? I had to go, and I'm not bragging. I had to go and listen to what they needed rather than what I thought they were going to need, because the keynote that I wrote that I was going to give them was not what they wanted, because I had to hear what their problems were. And it was different. Now I have gold because I sat in on the panel, and I can use that for other keynotes.
I love it.
It's just interesting how here I am 23 years in, and I'm telling you that I totally changed my keynote, because we're continually growing and changing.
You have to adapt. Absolutely. Yeah.
Beware. You love your content more than the audience many times.
Yeah. Well, we're attached. It's those old pair of overalls that we can't let go of. The only last question is, as far as your future aspirations are concerned, I know that you said that you're looking to get back into the industry. You've now officially become a member of the National Speakers Association Houston Chapter, so we're lucky to have you back. Anything else in the future that we can anticipate?
Some coaching. So I've been doing keynote coaching, and I learned something at the conference. So I'm going to be opening this. It's going to be kind of cool. So I have some new ideas, but I can't give up. I think that the reason people like my coaching is because I'm still speaking. So I'm not a coach that just coaches. I'm a coach that's out there, and there's a big difference. So I'm seeing the audiences, and so I feel like maybe that's good. So I can't give up speaking. I just booked 2024.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storytellers. Make sure that you guys join us August 18th at the National Speakers Association Professional Program, where Karen will be there to talk about how to, and Karen, I want to hear it from you. I want to hear you tell exactly what it is that you're going to be presenting.
So we're going to be presenting how we can connect better with our audiences, so that we create a killer keynote. So it's going to be all about the art of connecting. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I get my ideas for humor. how we can be, once I get through the work, then we're going to have fun because I'm going to put the spices into it, but it's definitely going to be where you're going to get a process on how to write your killer keynote and connect it to the audience.
I love it. It's going to be captivating, and we are super excited and thrilled to have you. So thank you again for joining us. This is Beth Rohani signing off. Until next time.